All right. We are live. So today I have the wonderful Maddy with me. Maddy, do you want to introduce yourself if somebody does not know who you are and has been living under a rock all this time?
Of course, yes. I am the one, the only Maddy Leger. I'm our Xamarin.forms tooling PM, so I work on everything that hopefully makes Xamarin.forms developers more productive when they're using all different types of tools. I don't always succeed at that mission, but I try.
Well, you did bring us something that I absolutely love. It has been a huge game changer for my development, and I know so many other people.
Yeah.
I know you're always so humble. You're like, oh, it wasn't me. It was my team. It was my team. Well, like, whatever, it was you. Okay, you're good. You're the face of the team.
I did I have contributed one line of code to the Hot Reload code base.
Uh-huh.
It was for the extension, when it was an extension, which we'll get into that whole story later, to give it a name.
Uh-huh.
And I broke the build with that string change. So
that's awesome.
I can tell you for certain it was the work of many people, much different than myself. So
it kind of reminds me a little bit about there was a time, I think it was at one of the builds that I went to, there was a Microsoft PM that was on stage and he was talking about some really old piece of like the Windows code base that he had committed to. And he's like, yeah, I got a commit in there. I took out a swear word from a comment that a developer put in.
Yep. That's about right. That's what I bring to the team. A big smile and breaking the build with the string change.
Yeah.
But
yeah, don't feel bad. I like my very first commit that I ever did to Prism. Most people probably don't know this, but my very first commit was a breaking API change.
Oof. Love that. Well, if you want to hear something insane, Miguel de Casa is now the first ever commit in the .NET repo.
I heard something about that. Yes.
Because they merged a whole bunch of them together or whatever. And so he is the source of all of .NET. So it turns out
he wrote .NET. That's right, yeah. That's all I got from that. So you are joining me here today to talk a little bit about Hot Reload. So what do you got for us? Like, what would you like to share with us?
Oh my goodness. Well, first and foremost, I should probably tell those of you who don't know what it is. It's an important first step. So XAML Hot Reload for Xamarin.forms lets you go into any XAML file while your app is running, change something, hit save, and see that updated immediately in your running app. So the great thing about it is it holds your navigation state. It doesn't throw away your view model or anything. It's going to show you it with your real data and on the device or emulator or simulator that you're debugging on, so you can get a really good feel for what your change is going to look like in release and production. Mm-hmm. And it's just a really, really quick way to iterate on your UI. The reason we built it is because so many people were like, hey, like I had to push my margins over to, and then I waited 3 minutes for my build, and you've made build times faster, but I really wish I didn't have to wait for a build to finish for me to make a simple UI change. And we were like, oh. So there were many iterations of this before it became XAML Hot Reload. I mean, way back, you had the Xamarin Live Player, which was an iOS app you could use. Whole bunch of things that were great about that we learned from, and a whole bunch of things that didn't work so well. One of them was it just didn't support a lot of third-party stuff.
I was going to say the app.
Yeah.
In general, everything about it. I had some whole worlds that didn't work on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it made sense as a proof of concept, and then people were like, I'm going to use this for everything. And then we were like, oh, this is issues. I wasn't on the team at that time. I shouldn't say we. The people before me, before I came in, were it's like,
okay. I think James has like pretty much owned that, so we can blame James. It's okay.
Yeah.
He's big enough to admit it,
Yeah, I get it. I just blame, I'm like, I wasn't there, sorry. I've been with the Xamarin team with the Xamarin team for a year and a half now. So I'm like running out of my newbie creds, but we're getting there. So after Live Player came Live Reload, which took off pretty quickly. It was an experiment. Like, it was something we were like, hey, and by we, I mean Pierce Bogan and co, not me, was like, hey, people want some kind of like hot reload while their app is running thing. Yeah. Like, let's just get something that work and we'll just go for it. That was also great. You got to install it as an extension. One of the big issues with that we learned was that having to do things over sockets and over network connections is actually not very good when you're in a corporate setting. Chances are, if you want to see what something looks like on the latest and greatest Android or iPhone, you're going to pull out the one in your pocket and deploy your app onto that instead of going and getting a test device, because that is a pain. Or you're going to go to an emulator or something. But if your iPhone is on the guest network and your development machine is on the corporate network, you can't do that anymore. So
that one is a pain in the enterprise world for sure. Definitely seen that one.
Yep.
But there are, I think, maybe some advantages to that network connection as well. So I remember there were some abilities where with that, like you could not even be running the app. Like you could have just built it, you've deployed it to the device, you've stopped debugging, but you just continue making changes and it's automatically persisting those changes over to the app, which is pretty freaking cool in my opinion.
Oh yeah, that was really cool. And it was just because it was a like live reload.init statement in your app.xaml.cs, app.cs, whatever, your app class. So if you built it in debug mode and you left that flag in there and you left that method being initialized, like you could just hypothetically do it if it was on the same network, which was awesome. Not so awesome when people were distributing it tests through work and everyone was on the same network and like they had it on App Center and they accidentally left it with the hot reload init column and code base and it was like a nightmare. But I haven't heard too much of that, which is good. So, but what we learned from that is that people really wanted us to give them XAML reload.
Yeah.
For realsies, built in with no setup, no strings, and it should be able to work with any type of application. And another huge win with live reload was it worked with custom controls and third-party controls. So I see Brian's in the chat. The Moo to You app got a lot of love with live reload and all of that demos, which was a Infragistics sample app with some charts. It's got charts. Charts are cool. Moo. So we kind of had a baseline of like, all right, whatever we're going to build that's like first party or whatever you want to call it, like built into Visual Studio, it has to be better than live reload because people really liked it. But there were definitely things we wanted to fix. We wanted to make it a sustainable, iterable thing. So we started working on it last spring, almost a year ago, not quite. March or April was around when we were like, all right, we're going to do this. And April and May and the early part of June were just like, let's make it work. We're making something work. And then we had something that kind of worked. We gave it to David Ortnow, who is the Xamarin.forms SDK PM, who is awesome. And he was like, this sucks. Please never let me look at this again. This doesn't work at all. And I hate it. And we were like, oh. So that is, as a good product manager, program manager, as Microsoft calls it, we were like, okay, well, we have to clearly give this to people to test before we let anybody else touch it. So we reached out to our lovely MVPs and we worked with some of our customers that have engagements with Microsoft and our Xamarin users. And Dan, I know, was an early tester.
Was?
I can't remember. I don't know if anyone else in the chat was an early tester, but all of you who did, thank you so much. Because not only did you help us prove that it worked like most of the time, so David could stop complaining, but also you helped us come up with how we were going to do the rest of our preview, which was give it to people as an extension with the intention that eventually it'll be built into Visual Studio. But if we give it to you as an extension, you don't have to wait for a Visual Studio update to start using it.
Yes.
Kind of tricky.
Yeah.
Then we got to announce it at the wonderful Xamarin Developer Summit to an absolute overwhelming standing ovation. I'm just kidding. It was loud applause, but that was great.
I saw people standing and applauding.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I mean...
And that's the birth of the fire counterclockwise arrow emoji branding.
Well, I mean, at the time, people were definitely very upset with the appearance of the previewer in Visual Studio that never worked. I always felt bad anytime I talked to you because I'm like, I know Maddy is new on the team, and all I do is like yell and scream about how much her product sucks. You know, like I hated that thing. But no, I mean, definitely XAML Hot Reload is amazing. Absolutely
Woo-hoo.
amazing.
That's good to hear.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's stable now. Like, long story short, you can use it, tools, options, Xamarin Hot Reload, and then Visual Studio Preferences, Projects, Xamarin Hot Reload on Mac, I think.
Yeah.
But it's there. Use it. It's great. You have to have Xamarin.forms 4.1, which you absolutely should have by now. It's been out since the summer, so get on it. iOS, Android, emulator, simulator, physical device. Hi, Pierce. Rodney, I can't believe you didn't give me a standing ovation during that. It was a big moment for me. But I did enjoy getting to meet you at Xamarin Developer Summit. And we're working on it. Like, it's not done. We have lots and lots and lots of new things coming throughout 2020. So.
Oh, nice. Pierce apparently is supporting me through ads. Well, thank you for that, I guess.
Oh my goodness. I hope it's a good ad, of all things.
I don't really have any control over that. That is purely a Twitch thing, man.
Oh, yeah.
But
yep.
Yes.
Show us some 2020 stuff. Jeez, Alan.
God.
First half or second half? I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. But yes, of course, there is an amazing engineering team behind this.
Yes. It's
not just me.
So
if you're an MVP, some of them will be at MVP Summit. If you are a community member, which I assume all of you are in some capacity, we have a online Xamarin conference the Monday, the 23rd of March. Details will be coming out next week. So there will be some hot reload goodness there. But Dan has done the work to get you all a sneak peek of some things. So
I try my best. So, Pierce has this comment here that you're a full stack engineer and PM. You do all the work. He's not entirely wrong. I mean, you did, like, when you were an intern for Microsoft, I mean, let's give credit where credit is due. You want to tell everyone about the project that you did, like, before you came on board the Xamarin team?
Yeah.
That was a cool project.
It was really cool. It was really fun, too. And that's what made me fall in love with mobile development and developer tools, which I never thought I'd be interested in. Yeah. I was a software engineer in college, and I was like, yeah, I love engineering. And then I did my first internship with the Microsoft Garage, where they pair you up with a group of interns, and you work on a project that's like pretty reasonably scoped for an internship length. Mm-hmm. And I thought I was going to claw my eyeballs out because I couldn't sit still for 40 hours a week and write code. As much as I like doing it, it was not going to happen. So I came back again the next summer as a PM for an internship. And during my first internship, or right before my first internship, Xamarin had gotten acquired. Mm-hmm. And they were like, yeah, they're going to move into the Boston office, but it's not going to be for a while, yada, yada. So the next summer we came in, and where the customer support people who hated the interns were sitting, there was now the Xamarin team, including Pierce, who was loud, but the only loud person over there. They were also annoyed with the interns at that time. So we got to know them pretty well. And Alex Corrado and Jeremy Laval, who have been around with Xamarin for a while now, had an idea where they were like, you know what would be sick? If you could like draw your UI and then it just wrote the code for you. That's it. That simple of an idea.
Yeah. So
and that was our summer project.
Like what happened to that?
So we built a UWP app called Ink to Code that you could run on your Surface Book or whatever has a touch screen. Literally draw your UI. Mm-hmm. And it will write your Android XML or create UWP XAML for you. So we hadn't really forayed into Xamarin Forms yet, but the next summer when I had started full time, the interns that came in and picked the project back up made it support Xamarin Forms, which was awesome too. But that's when I got to know the Xamarin team, and I was like, yeah, I kind of want to come work on this stuff. I think like developer tools are actually kind of cool. And then they gave me the previewer when I started. Yeah. Which was like Ink to Code, but backwards. So
setting you up for failure, and you somehow succeeded right through it.
No, I mean, honestly, like I could talk about design time versus runtime tooling and all this stuff for hours. Like, the previewer is a really, really good tool for what it was meant to do. The problem was that people want it to do what Hot Reload should be doing.
Definitely.
So, yeah, like the previewer makes sense if you're just trying to put together a page and make sure that your layers or everything are right? Like, you want to be able to quickly scope something out. I never build navigation or business logic first. I always build my UI first. So if I was trying to hot reload something, I'd have to change my main page every single time just to see what I was working on. So the previewer has its place, but at some point we were like, hey, like, it's time to move from this design time tool to the runtime world.
Yeah. So there was something else I wanted to kind of bring up too. So I know you remember there was an issue actually that was kind of posted on Prism recently where somebody was having some issues with Hot Reload. So just kind of so people know if they're having any issues, like how can they get help? Because like obviously it's not Prism. Like there's nothing I can do to fix their issue, right? Like it's going to be your team. So like what's the best way for them to get help?
Yeah, the number one thing you have to do before you rage tweet me, and I'm sorry, is you have to go to help report a problem or help send feedback report a problem. Because what you can do with that, and people think that we don't check it. We literally have dashboards and dashboards and dashboards, and there are like times you have to respond to things within, and you have to like make sure they're updated at a certain frequency. Like, we look at every single one, I promise. And the engineering team looks at every single one. But the key of doing it through that first is that you can attach your logs, you can send screenshots, there's a whole bunch of stuff, and it gives us all the information we need to get a good head start debugging your stuff, and it's all like a secure way to share your stuff. So nobody can see your code base or whatever, like only the Microsoft employees can see confidential information if you share it. Then you can rage tweet me, but you have to send me the link or I'm going to be mad at you. Or you can email me, Maddy@Microsoft.com.
Definitely. And
we'll try and take a look. But if you file it on Xamarin.forms, like they're probably just going to tell you to do help report a problem. Same with Prism. And we need those logs and stuff to fix it most of the time. So.
Yep. I think maybe another time we'll have to have like maybe Pierce or someone show everybody how to actually do that. Because there are some cool things that you can do with recording like what you're doing. And I don't think most people know how to do that. So that might be a good topic for another day, actually. So Pierce, kind of keep that in mind, buddy.
Pierce is the feedback and telemetry guru on our team. Like, if you need to hear from people, you talk to Pierce and he finds people to hear from.
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, I know we've been talking for a while. Did you want to show us some stuff and kind of like there was some stuff that I think you wanted to talk to, like about the journey. I don't know if we've already kind of covered some of that.
Yeah. We hit it. We'll come back to it as questions pop up.
Okay. And for everybody watching, if you have questions, we are definitely looking at the chat. So do feel free to put your questions in the chat.
For sure. I don't have 2 hours worth of content, so please ask questions.
So, yeah, I mean, I've been tweeting like from the very beginning, like everywhere I put messaging out, I said, write down some questions for Maddy. She wants to answer those questions.
I do. All right. I'm going to share my screen.
Yes.
We're going to do a kind of like simple hot reload demo just to show you if you're not familiar with it. And then we're going to start looking at some new stuff because that's fun. So share. Good. This is a file new Xamarin Forms shell app. That's not what I want. I'm going to try and debug it. But this is like a Nexus 4 emulator just because it's the smallest resolution. But I literally just like file new to this earlier, added a frame and made it lime green, which was really ugly. But I can go ahead and change this to hit save. And Hot Reload's going to update it immediately. To turn that on, options, Xamarin, Hot Reload, just like this. Link to the docs is right here if you can't find it. Docs are also at aka.ms/XAML Hot Reload, but link is right here. You can enable it or disable it. To set it up, there's a couple things you need to do. First and foremost, you need to go into your project properties, right? So for Android, right-click properties, iOS, right-click properties. They're two different settings. And in, I think it's in Android options. I always do this on Mac. Yes. In Android options, you need to make sure that your linking here is set to none.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for that is because if we link your assemblies, then we are not able to swap them out at runtime. So we just want to do everything. You should never really turn the linker on. Talk to James or someone about this. You should never really turn it on when you're debugging anyways, because your build times go up. But it can make your app size smaller, and it can make it a little bit faster sometimes.
Yeah, well, I always tell people too, like, avoid linking more than the SDK assemblies unless you really know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because it's going to do some voodoo magic, and you really don't know what's getting pulled out. And if you don't know the assemblies, like if you don't know the libraries that you're using very well, it's going to make it just that much harder on you. And then you're going to end up just saying, leave this whole assembly in anyway, because I don't know what's actually in there.
Yeah. Yep. It is something to foray into deep into your Xamarin journey. Definitely not a beginner trick, but if you don't do a new project and you're working on an older project, that's the one thing that trips a lot of people up with Hot Reload is they're like, it's not working. I'm like, well, your linker's probably on. So I can navigate, I can go into my about page, this beautiful classic about page. I can go back and like click on an item. This is the third item in this list. And I can go ahead and I'll change description to description with a lot of exclamation points and hit save. Immediately updates and it keeps my state. So this is still the third item, which is very exciting. And my navigation state. And my favorite feature of it is if I spell something wrong because I'm tired and I hit save.
Or you just can't spell like me,
Or I just, that too. I mean, we hear this all the time with like just properties that, you can't remember what it's called and you just like type something and hit enter, but it like puts it halfway through your word and then IntelliSense screws it up or something. But we do this lovely thing and we give you the same error 5 times. Just kidding. We give you an error, some squigglies that tell you, I have to file that. Pierce, remind me later if you're still here. Thank you. We tell you that this isn't something that you can do, but we don't crash your app or lose your navigation state. We just get rid of the property we can't figure out. So I'll just add it back. Save. Boop. All right. New stuff. Well, go look at the blog because some of this stuff is in preview on Mac. And by some, I mean the thing I'm about to show you is in preview on Mac. And I have to also set up my iPhone to screen share. So give me a sec. But we are working on bringing one of the most loved live reload features over to our implementation of Hot Reload, which works over the debugger. So you do have to debug to use it. The reason for that is because it is like the most secure way we can talk to your device or emulator without causing any trouble. And we kind of control it in a way, like the mono debugger is Xamarin. So that's the route we chose to go. But because we don't have those sockets anymore, we couldn't deploy to multiple targets at once. So I have my iPhone plugged in to my PC right now. My Mac is not on. I am using Hot Restart. It's a very exciting new feature, aka.ms/hot restart, I think is the short link. But it basically allows you to redeploy apps to your iPhone really quickly without having to fully rebuild and re-sign them. And because you don't have to go through those steps, you can just plug your iPhone in if you have a Apple developer account for debugging only and for development. You cannot release. You still need a Mac. You always are going to need a Mac to do Apple development. But in the short term, this is pretty easy. So this is my iPhone, screen reflected. This is my Android emulator. I'm going to right click on, hello. I should turn off my notifications. Wait, it's on Do Not Disturb. How do I use iPhones? Oh, well.
How do you use iPhones?
I don't know how to use iPhones. I'm like, my sister taught me everything I have to know. Okay, Do Not Disturb. On.
Yeah, Do Not Disturb being on should stop all of the notifications.
Oh, well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the solution. So usually what I see people do a lot is when you want to choose what project you're going to start, you right click here, you hit set as startup project. No. Solution level, set startup projects. And this gives you this nifty little dialog that is impossible to find else how. I don't know how I stumbled upon this. But you can set multiple startup projects.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to do is set my Android and my iOS projects to start with debugging.
I've always felt that should be a lot easier. Like there should just be a add to startup. So if you're on a single one, like you don't have to go into this whole dialogue. That would be so much more helpful.
Yeah.
I know it's not really your team thing, and that's just like a general Visual Studio thing, but that you're taking advantage of.
Fun fact, though, we're talking to that team next week to try and make it easier. So hopefully some stuff comes from that. I'll just take a clip of you just saying that. See, customer evidence. Great. But you can see that like this just changes to multiple startup projects. I want to make sure that this is any CPU. And then hit start. And it's going to take a second. Hopefully this works fine. My poor iPhone has been sitting here on like 8 different Wi-Fi networks today. It's going to take its time. And Hot Restart is amazing. And Pierce, thank you for letting me use your Apple developer account. But it's going to finish building, and then it's going to ask me in a second to open it on this guy. Right? Hello? Open it?
Maybe.
Nope. It's just deploying again. I might need to uninstall it and reinstall it because I was just showing it off. All right. Let's see.
What is that?
That's working. I don't know if that's actually connected, but let's find out. So might be doing some hot uninstalling and reinstalling. Oh, it's spinning. Okay, no, it's not connected to that. This is a preview feature, everybody. By the way, you are seeing the latest and greatest, but I just have to delete the app and rebuild it. So let's do this. Start. Ooh. So this is this feature is on Mac right now. Mac is a totally different in preview too, in the preview channel, not in the stable channel. But Mac is a totally different beast. How to set up the multiple run configurations. It's actually easier, but it is definitely something that you're going to want to Google and follow the docs to do. So now this is working. Thank gosh. Okay. Purple. Save. Boop. Boop. Done. 2 updates.
That's amazing.
Immediately. Over the debugger, I have an emulator. I have a device. I have Visual Studio. I got my Mac. I have my iPhone plugged into my PC. And the best part about this is because it's running 2 separate debuggers, I can click into something here and click somewhere else on the iPhone and go in and change my item detail page here. So like say that I'm doing an on-platform Android, right? So, so I can prove to you that this is actually a separate phone. Android, save. And then go into my about page and change this to like another nice lime color. Done. Just like that. So now I am editing 2 different pages in my app at the same on 2 different devices and 2 very different resolutions. And then if I click over in this, that's updated.
That's awesome.
Yep. If I click, the reflector is not interactive, but I always think it is. If I click into this and I go back to that items detail page, I change this to iPhone, hit save, boom. And the navigation state is maintained between both of them. What do we think? Cool.
I think that's pretty awesome. I mean, to be able to do this in 2 different apps and have 2 different navigation stacks, you can be in 2 different places, and be able to make those changes and have it persisting on both of them. And that's mind blowing. That really is mind blowing.
Oh yeah. Very exciting. Yes, you are going to need a bigger monitor. It's very difficult to do this with 2. Although if you just do devices, that's fine. No, yeah. So, sorry, Hot Reload. I'm making you mad. This is my phone reflected using Reflector. Thanks, Ryan, for answering that. But Pierce, that's a good idea. Call yourself on Teams and share your screen if you want to see your iPhone. But this is coming in preview 3 of the next Visual Studio on Windows. The current preview is preview 2. So I don't know when preview 3 is coming out. But it is there in the preview channel on Mac as well. So you can start playing with it today.
So you said this is in preview 2 on Windows?
On Mac? Oh, and preview 3 on Windows.
Preview 3 on Windows. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
And so is Hot Restart. Cool. So that's exciting.
Yes, and you don't have to do anything for hot restart anymore. It's just part of the preview, right?
Yeah. So when you run your project, if you plug in an iPhone, select here. If you plug in your iPhone, you select iPhone, and then you go to deploy it onto your iPhone. Hot Restart has a wizard that'll help you get set up. You have to install iTunes, and not from the Windows Store. You have to install it from the iTunes website, like the proper 64-bit one. And then you have to have an active, paid-for Apple developer account. But once you have those things, you just sign in with that account. Visual Studio automatic provisioning is amazing. It does all of the work for you, and it uses a wildcard ID, and boom, off to the races.
Yeah, now, is it able to detect, like I've already gone through all the trouble of setting up like a provisioning profile and everything? Is it able to figure that out?
Yeah.
You have a matching bundle ID and all that?
Yeah. Yep. So I am not going to show you the page because it's not, because it has the ID number on it. But if you right click here and you go to properties, you can go into the actual settings on Windows for your iOS provisioning stuff. And it will let you either do automatic, which means VS Windows is going to do it all for you, or you can go in and do manual and choose from things you already have if you need to. So
yeah,
that's a pro move.
Yeah. And I know that whole dialogue too got some love recently, which I am super happy about.
It did.
So, I know I was talking to you earlier about how I have both an enterprise account with Apple, and then I have just like a regular company account with Apple. And so it basically shows Avanti Point and Avanti Point. And I'm like, well, great. Which one is which?
Yep.
And this has been like a thorn in my side for a long, long time. And basically whichever one I picked every single time was always the one I didn't want. And so now it actually does show that it's like the regular company account or the enterprise account, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's so much easier to use. And I was using Hot Restart. I showed it at Dev Intersection in November. And the amount of work that team has put into that experience and contributed back to the general iOS experience on Windows.
Yeah. It's
just day and night since November. It's incredible. I'm so happy. I keep posting in their Slack and being like, great job. Here, I have a problem. Can you fix it? But I pepper it with great jobs. So that means I'm nice, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So that's the only showable.
It's the only showable
demo.
You don't have more demos than that?
No, I don't have anything else I can show you. But I have some things I can talk about.
So maybe there's something we could kind of go through here. Like, what is you told everything would be showable. R2 trolling there. But what maybe are like some edge cases that Hot Reload has?
Was that staged? Did we talk about this? Because that actually leads into the thing that's not yet showable that I did want to mention and have permission to mention.
I'm just a mind reader, I guess.
Yeah, that's because I was going to try and plant that with you, and then I was like, I'll bring it up. But I think you just segued.
Well, it's more of a, like, you run into things, you're like, oh, crap, this isn't working, whatever. So, it's just developer experience.
What Hot Reload does is it refreshes your page. And when it refreshes your page, it calls your constructor on appearing and on disappearing if you have that set to kill lifecycle events, right? Which is great. That means all your data comes back. You just navigated to the page. When that's not great is when you have a very well modularized app and everything's inherited from a base content page. And on that base content page, you do things in your constructor that your subpages are required to use. Because what happens is we don't reload that constructor when you reload your items page. We don't reload your base items page constructor because it's not that page. It's XAML.cs. So that can give you some screwy things. So part of the reason the Hot Reload team has been so quiet for the past 2 months is because we've been putting all of our effort into A, multi-deploy, multi-target, whatever, and B, a new method built on top of the same stack, but kind of beg, borrow, and stealing from the XAML Hot Reload for UWP and WPF method, where they just swap out what you changed and its children. So we wanted to do that originally. That was our plan. It was like, we'll just do that first. And we were like, oh, that's actually going to be a lot of work. So we should just build the one that Live Reload did, or similar to that, with the on appearing and just recalling the page, get that out, and see if we actually need this. Yes, we actually needed it. We should have listened to Windows in the first place. They were right. But I was glad to get this. I know. I was glad to get this out to you in June instead of February. So
I was happy about that too. I really appreciated the timing.
I know you did. We did our best. So, Dan asked me about every week for the 3 or 4 months leading up to Xamarin Developer Summit if we could announce Hot Reload at Xamarin Developer Summit. And every single time I said, I honestly have no idea until the week before when I was like,
and then I just kept getting yelled at by James. He's like, shut up already.
Yeah. He was like, we have no control over this. He was right. So, so what we're going to do now is come up with a new method to refresh the page, and it's going to be in the same Hot Reload menu. We're not going to turn it on for you yet, but we'll give you the option if you want to try it, and if you are experiencing these issues. It's going to be called incremental reloading, or reload just what changed. So you'll have two options, like two radio buttons. One's going to be reload my whole page. One's going to be reload just what changed. And that should keep the state of every control around what you're changing. So if you have like 3 entries, text boxes. Oh, so trivial. If you have 3 entries and you type into all 3 of them and you only edit and then hot reload the third one, it should keep the text in the other 2 for you. So that is going to be a big win. And because we are working so closely with the XAML Tooling for UWP team on that, there are more things that we can share. I'm not going to say too much, but if you think about UWP XAML Hot Reload, there's a couple different tools it has that we're looking at. Also, it has the word UWP in it, which ours currently does not, and ideally, eventually, it does, i.e., alongside Android and iOS. So,
I mean, who uses it though? I mean, other than Morton, come on, you know.
Oh God, I hope he's not here.
Oh, I hope he is here just for that alone.
I know. I'll have to add him. At Morton. He's great.
Yes.
Let's see. Are there any plans on expanding or enhancing shell navigation? I'm a tooling PM.
So, yeah.
No. But there are a lot of plans. Actually, I have the short link, and I'm going to post it if you allow me to post URLs for the Xamarin Forms roadmap. Xamarin Forms roadmap? XF roadmap, maybe?
So, you know, when it comes to shell, I mean, that's not really, Matt, that would be more of like a Shane kind of question about about that kind of stuff. Now, speaking of shell, something that would be more of a in your wheelhouse kind of thing. How does Hot Reload work with shell?
Yeah, it works. I mean, I can share my screen again if you want.
Sure.
I haven't tried it with this build, so it could be totally broken. Like, I am running things I downloaded from a CDN that I got via a Slack link earlier today. So please forgive me if something isn't working. But this is my app shell page, and while we look through this, I'll start deploying this.
Sure.
Maybe. You can see it's just XAML. There's a resource dictionary up here. And if you look at any of like David Ortneff's sample apps on GitHub, he started to do some cool things where he pulls this all out in separate files and makes it much easier to read. But all of these things are literally just like XAML properties for style. And so you can change those really quickly. And then there's also your tab bar, your tabs, and that's how you define your navigation in a shell app. So what I can do is you see a browse and about down here. I'll copy, paste, hit save, fingers crossed. Ooh, there we go. page. And because of the way Shell works, like this is literally just data template local about page.
Mm-hmm.
It just creates a new about page. So I can navigate between these no problem. And then I can delete it. There used to be some issues where like Shell would just continue to create tabs all the time. We fixed that. Thank you, private preview participants, for finding that one. But it works with all these properties as well. So
Perfect.
like the Shell tab bar background color is the static resource navigation primary. So what I'll do is I'll go into my XAML. Oh, where is that static resource? Oh, well. Oh, wait, it's up here. This one. And I'll change that to teal or something. Save. And that's going to refresh that right away. That wasn't a very, very accessible color change. Pink. There we go. So, like, just like that, I'm editing the shell of this application. I'm editing the navigation, what goes where. And I can also do something like, change this local about page to a local items page. Save. Go to that. Oh, yeah, there we go. So it's the same page now.
So here's kind of a total like just from left field here, but
yeah.
I mean, you mentioned accessibility, right? And I've definitely seen accessibility being a topic that gets brought up more and more over the last year. I think it's kind of like started to hit more of like a critical mass of people talking about it.
Yeah.
Becoming more aware of it, which I think is actually really exciting in a lot of ways. There are other ways I think it's less exciting because it's like, oh man, now it's not another thing I have to think about when I'm building an app.
Right. Oh yeah.
But have the teams thought about any ways that maybe we could have a tool that could help with accessibility and maybe it's not like doing it for you, but like, giving you some tips or like kind of like looking at, the pages and things that you're developing and go, hey, like this isn't very accessible, but like if you maybe added, something here or there, like it would help make it more accessible. Like, have you guys thought about that or?
Yeah, absolutely. It's what we talk about all the time because you want to give people the tools to make things as accessible as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But every app has a different use case.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do support, and something that's huge about Hot Reload is it supports the tools that you can use for accessibility on that platform. So for an iPhone, if you have a screen reader and you're using Hot Reload, you can debug your app by listening to it, make that change, and then listen to it again,
mm-hmm.
which is pretty awesome. I know that the Xamarin Forms team is always adding new like accessible properties. So things like alt text and that kind of stuff. They're always making sure that is at the top of mind. But I'm not an accessibility expert. I wish I was. I think if you're an app builder, my top 3 tips are make sure that all your pictures have captions. Make sure that your colors are not white on light pink. This is a terrible combo, and I'm sorry. Make sure your colors have a reasonable contrast ratio. Make sure that you use accessible font sizes. So in Xamarin Forms, we have built it right in for you. If you hold on, let me undo the madness I've done to this page.
Like this was kind of talked about a little bit on the stand up this morning with like if you're using a named size versus just like a hard coded size, right? Like
yeah. So I just really made Visual Studio upset though. So give it a second. Love those preview bits I'm running.
If only you knew someone that worked on the Visual Studio.
Ooh, it came back. Look at that.
I'm impressed.
Oh, love that.
Usually I have a crash.
No, it's in a good mood today. It likes being shown off, just, Hot Reload stuff. So I'm going to take away all this stuff that I've done to it to save. What you can do is how this is font size 16, font size 13. Mm-hmm. That doesn't scale. But this leads into another thing that I'm going to hint at, but not demo.
Okay.
Great timing, Dan. What I can do is I can actually tap into the system, their accessibility sizes. Mm-hmm. So all operating systems have a set of a slider in their accessibility settings mm-hmm. where you can change the font size in your app. So I'll set this to large refresh it. And then this will dynamically scale based on what my settings are in this emulator. So, I don't know how to find it on this. This is a very gross looking thing, but font. Yeah. So remember what that looks like. First item, second item, third item. Make it huge. Largest. There we go. Just like that. It just scaled automatically for me to a new font size, which is fantastic. Now, it is a complete and utter pain to go and switch that in the settings on this emulator that I am using with my mouse. It's also a pain if I wanted to do something like dark theme and turn it on and see what it looks like for my app. Got it. So dark theme is supported with Xamarin.forms. Some of the app templates have it. Some of them don't. Also, sometimes you just have to restart the app. Like, it's just a mood sometimes. Let me kill it and see if that'll work. I know this works for sure on iOS, but I think the Android might be different, and that's what I'm doing here. What we want to do is give you, this doesn't work. I'll try it on iOS, is give you the ability to change those emulator settings from within Visual Studio. So instead of having to go into the settings page and like finding the thing I want and changing it there, I want to just be able to like drop that down in here or drop it down one of these tabs and say like, okay, pretend that my emulator has a bigger font size. Pretend that my app has a dark theme on, or my phone has dark theme on, and then show me that and don't make me restart the app.
Now, would this be an emulator only thing? Or would that be something that might work with both like a real device and the emulator? Like, what are you thinking there?
Good question. That's a good question. I don't know for sure. It's different when you're screwing with someone's actual phone, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if I'm overriding it just for this app, that's fine. But then how do I know that this is an accurate representation of what this phone wants me to do and not just what we think the phone wants it to do? But then if in VS I can go in and turn on dark mode on your phone, and then you unplug your phone and you go about your day and dark mode's still on and you have to go into settings and turn it off, that's a pain too. So we are going to do some user tests.
Like, I'm just thinking like right off the top of my head, like, could you maybe embed like a file or something from VS, and then when the app starts up, it basically like on start in the native app, it configures itself to what you want, and then like when the app dies, it basically like disregards all of that.
I'm gonna make a note. Customer research, free customer research from Dan on Twitch.
I got ideas. What can I tell you?
Oh yeah. I mean, we're pretty open. We're kind of in the prototyping stage, I guess you would call it, which is why I don't have anything I can show you because nothing works to the point where it's showable. But we want to do customer research on it. As always, like, reach out to me and I'm more than happy to chat about it and show you things when we have something to show and get your feedback. Resets environment. And we're going to call it something like environment settings, something simple, but within Visual Studio. And if you're multi-deploy debugging, you can change all the settings at once and just see what it's going to look like. And that should help you make more accessible color schemes and fonts in your app.
Yeah, that would just be so very helpful. I know the last time that I tried to turn on the accessibility, like I was like, okay, I'm going to get better about this accessibility thing. Like, I know I should be doing it. And it took me probably 15 minutes to figure out how to get out of the settings page. And then and then like to go to the app. And then I was like, what am I doing? I'm connected to Visual Studio. Who cares? And so then I just like launch it. Okay, so good. Now I get the app I wanted and I can start going through the accessibility stuff. And then I spent like the next hour and a half trying to figure out how to get back to go turn it off.
Oh my goodness. Yep. Sounds about right. Sounds like me. I'm also going to drop the link.
This is accessible. How is it accessible? I can't figure out how to use this thing.
Yo. I get it. I'm going to drop the link that we have to if you haven't stumbled upon the Microsoft documentation yet, like you should, because our docs are always so good. The Xamarin.forms documentation for accessibility links to the Xamarin accessibility guide, the iOS and Android accessibility guide. It has a video of James and one of our community members talking about accessibility, and it has some good hints on testing to make sure your apps are accessible. So that's a really, really good place to start if you're just dipping your toe in the accessibility world too.
Sounds good. Perfect.
All right.
Well, do you have anything else for us here that you wanted to show off? Again, guys, if you have any questions, don't let me be the only one with questions, man. Like, ask your question. You got her here. Like, this is the time to ask. So. Yeah,
and I'd also love to hear, like, feel free to complain about feedback in the chat.
Yeah.
Like, feel free.
I guess I was being nice by saying questions. I should have said, come with your complaints. Man, we would have had like 200 people here with that one.
I know, seriously. Brian, I think your question got answered. I mean, we tested with a bunch of Prism sample apps, but Ryan, that's a spicy question. We did try Hot Reload with a bunch of Prism apps, and it worked for the most part. If you're having issues, though, let me know, because we'll fix it. Where's code-based Hot Reload? Asks R2. I don't know what Miguel said. Sorry.
You didn't even know that he was going to codename things the way he codenamed them.
No, I didn't. Miguel did codename things in a way that we were entirely unprepared for, but it was
I was trying to get the crew to put up the correct song for when you went on stage, and they wouldn't do it.
Yeah. It was all right.
It was one of my big disappointments from XDS.
Yes, really Baby Shark was the original code name of Hot Reload, for those of you who don't know. And we had a week of that song being sung at us by parents, mainly. And it was traumatizing, but it was great. And that's the name of our repo for it. Ryan, I'm going to answer your code-based Hot Reload by saying, I don't know where it is. Why don't you go find it? I'll look for it. I mean, I can't give you a timeline. It's definitely something we want to deliver to you all at some point.
So it's something under investigation is what you would maybe say, or could say.
Yes, the code-based Hot Reload was inside of you all along. So. Okay.
I mean, there's code there. I don't know. I don't know what everyone's complaining about. Like, you wrote code to do XAML.
Yeah, XAML's code, right? Yeah. You can compile it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
I mean, never mind the details of it being an embedded resource that's preserved, but
Right. But the thing is, there's a whole. So people usually compare us to something like React Native, right? Yeah. Or cross-platform mobile toolkit. React Native is an MVC framework. The state is managed entirely separately from everything else. And you can, that's not what MVVM is. So when I change my C#, depending on where I am in that app, it could have a totally different effect on the UI than if I changed a line of C# 3 lines away from it. So that's what makes it difficult. We can't just recreate everything. We can't just recreate the elements that you created because they were created in a different language.
Well, and then you get people that want to just write everything in code.
Right. Yeah, no, and I mean, I get it. I came from a web background before I started MVVM. I like XAML because it is easily indented and I can find everything. Yeah. And I get very overwhelmed with large code files. Yeah. But psychopaths, exactly. But I do totally see the point for people who like model view controller style, people who like C# Hot Reload, or C# UI, Freudian slip. C# for markup is a PR gathering a lot of interest in the Xamarin Forms repo right now. people use reactive UI and all those things. So yes, Comet is also happening. Comet is it's James Clancy's kind of like experimental prototype proof of concept of an MVU, so like model view update, which is MVC with different letters. Don't tell them I said that. Being able to like write everything in one standard C# API for Xamarin Forms. I think he targets Blazor.
I don't
Bunch of stuff.
I don't remember Blazor being there.
Maybe not.
I know there's a Mac. I think there's GTK. There's WP. He has like everything under the sun. But there's, like one of my complaints on Xamarin Forms for a long time, like so many people, is the lack of Skia. And, one of the things that Clancy has been able to do was to add Skia from the get-go. And that just lets you expand to pretty much everything.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, with very minimal work. So.
Yep.
But anyway.
Oh, I'm going to drop the link to Comet. It does target Blazor.
Oh, does it? All right.
Blazor support for Comet is coming. Woohoo!
So it looks like Sweeky said that she wrote the PR for it.
That's so cool. Sweeky, you're great. Add friends. I didn't realize you were friends on Twitch. Look at all the hype for Comet. That's awesome. So what do you all like about Comet in the chat? Like, is it because there's no XAML? Or is it just because you like MVU? Or is it something else? Is it just because you like Clancy and you want to support him? What do you like? Streams? Like a data type? Or like Clancy's live streams about him building Comet?
He bribes you in candy?
Yeah, that makes sense. The Comet emoji is great. Although, fire emoji counterclockwise arrows is better. Just so you know. The official branding for
the official
XAML Hot Reload. The officially unofficial.
Well, I definitely was using it on Twitter when I was letting people know about this, but that had a little bit to do with the fact that Twitter limits your character count. And
yeah,
I mean, I'm a little sad because, a few years ago, Trump kept doing these 12 tweets. And so they doubled the size, but he stopped doing that. And so they haven't increased it again.
Right.
Like I wish he would do his stupid tweets really long so that way we could get longer tweets and then I could fit an actual thought into a tweet. That's really my only motivation for it.
On Twitter.
No, you're supposed to get upset on Twitter, right? About everything.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And hot restart, it hasn't caught on quite the same, but fire emoji and then restart track, which are the two double back arrows to line. That is the hot restart branding unofficially. So
I'm sure I'll have Pierce on later this month to talk more about that. But what can you tell us about hot restart?
Yeah.
So right now that it's in preview, it's on Visual Studio on Windows. Will it be coming? And it works with iOS.
Yep.
So right now, it doesn't do anything on Android, right? And it doesn't do anything on Visual Studio for Mac. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the case right now. So Android in preview has apply changes for native Xamarin Android apps. Mm-hmm. R2 requires quotes forms. Yes.
And requires forms, yes.
With Android apply changes, it's an Android native functionality that they built into Android Studio that we've kind of taken that model of. Mm-hmm. So it's similar to hot restart in that you can get a much faster restart without having to do the full build and redeploy and signing and everything. Mm-hmm. It also kind of has a little bit of hot reload, depending on how your app is. If you edit certain things in an activity, it can hold your state. The idea is that the hot tools umbrella kind of encompasses everything. And the dream is that you should be able to hot reload, hot restart, hot reload more stuff anywhere and on any target that you're building Xamarin. That's the dream. I can't tell you when it's going to happen. It might not, but that is what we strive to get to at some point. So
So, well, actually, I mean, this kind of brings up an interesting thought. So we know it does iOS. Um, have you guys tried it with like WatchOS or Apple tvOS?
Huh. I haven't tried it, but I can't imagine that it wouldn't work, right? Like you're able to plug the thing in and open the app. So
Yeah, I'm just kind of
I don't
curious,
know.
like if it works. Like, I don't even have an Apple TV anymore. Like, at least not a new enough one to be able to do all that.
Yeah.
You think I would just for the tax write off, but I just don't care enough. Like, there's no demand for it, so like, why do I want to bother?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, like, I don't even know how you, like, I hypothetically, someone should try it and write a blog, and I'll put it in the next community stand-up, because that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, I know that Alan was very upset that you didn't mention Shiny this morning.
Today?
Yes.
Oh, Alan, my dude, I love Shiny. I didn't see any blogs about it on Planet Xamarin, although I have mentioned it, I think, in every community stand-up so far. Was there?
Yeah.
I will make sure it's on next month's. I saw some Twitter buzz, but I haven't seen any of the new stuff yet.
So it finally went to version 1.0 stable.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
What? How did I miss this?
I don't know. That's like, I was kind of shocked because I figured you would have said something about it too.
Same. I'm going on Alan's Twitter right now.
See you later, Brian.
Bye. Okay. It's not in his most recent, like, 10 tweets. So, what do I do? What am I supposed to do here?
It was a while ago.
Oh.
It was definitely, it was there.
Was it possibly for January that I might have said it? Oh, January 27th. Oh, yeah. Right there. And I totally missed it.
Yep.
All right. Well, consider this my follow-up.
This is your stand-up announcement.
And I'm going to make the OneNote for next month right now and put it in it. Yeah, this is what I do is I spend like a couple days before the community stand-up just scrolling through Planet Xamarin. I do some Googling. Always make sure that I have like the events blog post and if there's anything coming out that's major. But I miss stuff. And if you send things to me, I will. So
what we're going to do is we're going to turn it around and we're going to blame Alan and say that if he cared enough about his own library, he would have emailed you.
Right.
But he doesn't care enough, or tweeted at you, but he doesn't care enough, so it's his own fault.
Right, exactly. Yep.
That's what I'm getting from all of this.
Yes, I will take no blame for something that is entirely my fault. Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? Like, and it's also hard because there's so much good content. Like, sometimes it's like I show up with my OneNote and it's all shiny, and I'm like, I have 74 blogs I want to talk about today, and James is like,
Pick
you
5.
can have 10. Yeah. Oh, God. So, you know, you can't just click on everything because it looks shiny. Oh, God,
I do love like why he called it shiny. Like, oh, there's a shiny new thing.
Yeah, I know. It's so good. And that's the thing with Steven and Pancake View and how everyone names that namespace Yummy. That's like my favorite thing in the world. So
I always call everything awesome app. Like anytime I'm doing something, it's like awesome app. Oh, here's my bug report with awesome app. You know?
That's great. That is Xamarin seminars shows. The Xamarin developers YouTube is hot. No pun intended. Pun actually totally intended right now. We just hit 50,000 subscribers, and we've only had it active again for like a couple months, which is a huge, huge deal. So we're really excited. But James Montemagno kind of facilitates all the content we roll out, and there's a whole bunch of different stuff. There's Xamarin Essentials API of the Week, which doesn't actually happen every week anymore because I think they might have run out of APIs. But
that was always a terrible name for that reason.
Right, exactly.
Just throwing that out there.
Yep, but they're just short kind of videos letting you know how you can use a new Xamarin Essentials API. Pretty self-explanatory. The Xamarin Show, which is deep dives, usually with guests who are engineers on the team or PMs from elsewhere on the team. And those are like, sometimes 10, sometimes 30, sometimes closer to an hour. And those are like deep dives on new things or really, really complicated technical things, best practices. James and I both do Xamarin Forms 101s, which are like quick little 5-minute bite size. Here's how you use an entry in an editor. Go. And those are really helpful for like, you know, new developers, or if you just are trying to expand your knowledge. And I have to fly to Redmond to film those. I don't film them here in my home. So that's why you don't get them all the time. But I am taking requests now for the next round that I'm going to be filming at the end of the month. So if you do have any requests for Xamarin Forms 101s, let me know. I just opened Twitter, and the Iowa Caucus app was written in React Native.
That is hilarious.
Dan said at the beginning of the stream, we were talking about how that app was not doing well. And how I jokingly was like, well, hope it wasn't Xamarin Forms. Dan was like, probably React Native, haha. And I was like, really? And he was like, no, I have no idea. And sure enough, someone on Twitter has just tweeted that. So,
well, see, I said it a while ago because, like, you're not going to build a good app with React Native. You got to use a good framework like Xamarin. Just saying.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
I mean, we're open source. You got all the power of Visual Studio. You got all the power of .NET behind you.
And let's see, how many open issues are there?
I see a question about Twitch streams. I don't stream a lot because I usually don't. When I come home, I usually like watch The Bachelor and play with my dog. And we don't have very good lighting at work, so I can't stream there.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, though, I like to do a guest appearance or stream on my own. So it's ad hoc as well. But usually people upload them after. Kim Philpotts does all the UI ones. Those are awesome. KYM, Kim. So definitely tune into those as well.
What is that? Yeah, Flutter. Why am I not sure? So yeah, I actually really think this is funny. Like, people always complain about, you know, there are so many issues on Xamarin Forms. There are 2,000 open issues. You know, Xamarin Forms must suck. But you come over here on Flutter, they stopped counting. There are too many.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Hey, I mean, I think Flutter is a great framework. I love what they did. I think that, like, the setup and the tooling and, like, the fact that their point is developer productivity, like, obviously that speaks to me. But Xamarin's the best and we have the best team. So what can I say?
Yeah. I'm like,
you know?
And I mean, a lot of the issues, well, I mean, let's just be honest, right? Like, nobody on the team does anything for GTK. Probably not Mac OS. Tizen doesn't really count because that's all Samsung.
Right. My gosh, the Tizen team is amazing.
And too. They are amazing. Nobody really cares about UWP, and there ain't no real love for Xamarin Forms WPF. So,
yeah. I mean, like, the one thing that, and Pierce actually just tweeted this recently too. The Xamarin community is like unlike any other developer community I've ever worked with, because first of all, y'all are vocal. Like, you tell us your problems, you tell us your successes.
We love to complain.
And I always say, like, I have a bunch of friends who are PMs at all different types of companies. PMs at, like, consumer-facing product companies are consistently begging and pleading people to complain about their product so they can have something to fix. I have no shortage of feedback, and I still want more. Like, I feel so lucky. And Pierce just said, like, that exact, like, people give us such great actionable feedback. And that being said, like, this repository is so community driven. Like, the Xamarin Forms team isn't huge. You can see based on the commits who works on the team and who doesn't. Like, it's a pretty small team that has an amazing reach. And David had a slide at, I think, Xamarin Developer Summit, so it's probably on the interweb somewhere, where he showed how much community contributions and community PMs have increased in the past few years. And it's astounding the speed at which Xamarin is growing. The community, the toolkit, everything.
I mean, it's what, like, what is it, 4 engineers or something like that work on it?
I think it's a little bit more, but yeah, it's
like 4 or 5.
Single digits for sure, and they're all over the world. Like, they're in 1,000 different time zones. There's not 1,000 time zones, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
And that's, like, Then there's people who work on tooling, and those people, it's like a handful. Like the Hot Reload team is like, I don't know, depending on the time of year, anywhere from like 2 to 4 people are working on it. So it's not, like we've got this powerhouse of people building these tools, but they're all amazing. So it helps.
Yeah.
And our community is amazing. So that helps.
Definitely. Lot going on for sure. A lot of great things. I know that were shown off this morning on that stand up. So if you guys haven't watched that, I would definitely encourage you guys to go do that. And that was on the Visual Studio Twitch and YouTube, right? So.
Yeah. I think it's also on .net somewhere. They have like a .net community stand-up landing page.
Has James thought about adding the those stand-ups to the YouTube?
Yes, I think they're already on the Visual Studio YouTube. Hold on. This is the link to all of them, and you can filter. It's not just Xamarin. Every week is a different workload. So, and then I think every Tuesday is ASP.NET, but there's like languages and runtime and Visual Studio itself, desktop development, cloud development, and mobile, which is great.
Yep. It is. So anyway, Maddy, I want to thank you for your time. Doesn't look like there are any other pressing questions coming from the community right now. Shockingly, I think they're all like being shy and they just want to like yell on Twitter.
They don't want to hurt my feelings. I get it.
Yeah, they don't want to hurt your feelings. They're going to go and complain on Twitter. So thank you guys for joining. Thank you, Maddy, for joining us and showing us these wonderful new things that we've got coming to us here. We'll see you guys later.
Thank you, Dan. Bye, everybody.